Welcome back to Istanbul, the fabled ancient capital of the Ottomans and Byzantines, and now a modern and prosperous city where Europe and Asia meet on the shores of the Bosporus in Turkey. Istanbul's skyline is among the most magnificent in the world. A grand silhouette of domes, minarets, and ancient monuments atop the city's 7 hills that hover above the water. There are so many places to enjoy the scenery. From a restaurant window in Eminönü overlooking Galata and its 14th century Genoese tower. Or from the pier of Karakoy across the water from Süleymaniye Cami. Or indeed from the heights of Süleyman's Mosque itself, with its commanding views of the Golden Horn and the Black Sea in the distance. With 7 hills to choose from and a long stretch of waterfront to pick a spot, the city is blessed with more vistas than any other I've been to. There are dozens of magnificent vantage points in Istanbul, but for me this is one of my favorites. You see, over here you see Europe and Asia, east and west, in a single frame, in a single shot. You see that point where the lighthouse is? That's right in the center of both continents. But if you ask the locals, they'll lead you to the highest point in Istanbul for the best views of their bustling metropolis. I'm on my way to Camlica Hill above the Asian shore, a district once only accessible by boat, but now reached by crossing the Bosporus Bridge that connects the 2 continents in a matter of minutes. Camlica Hill rises 268 meters above Istanbul and provides the most complete panoramas of the Bosporus, the Black Sea, and the European side of the city, where most Byzantine monuments, Ottoman palaces, and modern Turkish landmarks were built. It's rather foggy today, but on a clear day, you can see all the most magnificent landmarks of Istanbul on the European side. It's such a magnificent view. You know what? In the olden times, they used to call the people who stayed behind in Asia as blinders, meaning they were blind to the beauty of Europe. The view promotes a better sense of why ancient Constantinople and modern Istanbul was and still is so strategic. The strait that runs through it is one of the most important maritime passages in the world, connecting the Black Sea with the Sea of Marmara, and by extension, the Mediterranean. So that even if the capital was moved to Ankara, Istanbul remains Turkey's most prosperous and populous city, with the best views of its brand new metropolitan district on the Asian side visible from above Camlica Hill. Speaking of views, the Ottoman sultans and the elite of the city were so fascinated with the Bosporus, they built their palaces and mansions along the waterway. When it comes to hotels, everyone wants a room with a view, and in Istanbul that means a suite overlooking this side of the Bosporus. Just look at this magnificent view. And that's the reason why most of the famous luxury hotels are on this side of the city. But only one of those hotels was once an imperial palace, and we're gonna explore it. The Ciragan Palace, operated by the Kempinski Luxury Hotel Group, is the one and only Ottoman imperial palace on the Bosporus that was converted into a hotel. As you can tell, the Ciragan Palace is a preferred address of heads of state, royals, and tycoons visiting Istanbul. It's not just royalty and heads of state. It has some Hollywood A-listers. Daniel Craig, for example, where they filmed James Bond in Istanbul, one of the films of James Bond in Istanbul. Robert De Niro, Eric Clapton, Madonna, Sting. Apparently, this is the hotel in Istanbul. And why not? Apart from the legendary service and hospitality of the Kempinski Group, the location on the European shore of the Bosporus in Istanbul is magical to say the least. And so too is the palace. It's genuinely palatial.
a recreation of the original built by Sultan Abdulaziz as his private residence. In 1910, a great fire destroyed everything except the outer walls. But by then, the Ottomans were at the end of their reign, and the building was left neglected until the property was converted into a luxury hotel in 1989, and then restored in 2007 to its original imperial majesty.
Every hotel has a wow factor, and for that Ciragan Palace, this is it. It sort of reminds you of the Dolmabahce Palace, another imperial palace very close by along the Bosphorus. And that large chandelier over there, the crystal chandelier, it's the second biggest one in Turkey. That's right, second only to the Dolmabahce palaces.
The sultans were as wealthy, if not wealthier, than most European royals, and were famous for their profligacy and penchant for over-the-top luxury.
There's a private entrance for VIP guests. Now, the Ottoman imperial court was known for its elaborate hospitality and, of course, its opulence, and they recreated here at the hotel. Ah, perfect.
This flower is for you.
It's for me?
Yes, for you.
Oh, thank you.
Our Turkish traditional sherbet.
Ah, thank you so much. Ah, refreshing, very nice.
Suites in the original palace building range from 1,000 to 30,000 euros a night. Still a bargain for guests hoping to live like an Ottoman sultan, but with no harem, of course. Though you'll find many other pleasures here.
Some Turkish coffee, baklava, and a view of the Bosporus. Really now, what could be better than this? Well, in Istanbul, actually, a lot of things.
Such as rediscovering an ancient Ottoman art that's at risk of disappearing.
All right, I know it doesn't look like much, but I'm told that this is where you'll find one of the best preserved crafts and arts, not just of Istanbul, but of Turkey. Let's go. Now it's called ebru. It's the Turkish or the Ottoman art of marbling.
This is the workshop of art Ebru, run by Erol Çağlar, a master marbling artist with more than 20 years of experience in the 16th century Ottoman craft of paper and scroll decoration. Erol runs local and international workshops in Ebru, or the art of paper marbling that involves creating colorful patterns by sprinkling and brushing paint in a pan of oily water and then transferring it to paper. Ebru's floral prints can be used as standalone art for framing, while the abstract marbling patterns are good for decorative paper or for bookbinding. It's an old Turkish tradition that's listed as a UNESCO intangible heritage and can only be taught by a certified master who also makes his own tools and materials. Lucky for me, Erol's studio is open to foreign visitors, and he's agreed to take me under his wing, if only for one morning.
So, you want me to try?
Yeah.
Are you sure you want me to try?
Yes.
Okay, this is embarrassing in front of the camera.
Yes.
I'm going to show just how amateurish I am when it comes to art, but let's try it.
Ebru paints are natural organic pigments, while the brush is made of horsehair, which splatters paint more evenly, and the stalk of a rose, which allows more flexibility. The viscous liquid that acts like a canvas is made from an Anatolian gum resin, and together with drops of an ox's gall, they keep the colors from spreading too quickly and from sinking prematurely. It's an ancient technique that survived through the years.
All right. Okay. Okay, that's the easy part, right? Okay. And this is the more challenging part. This is where you break the patterns to create that marbling effect.
A steady hand and a steel awl are needed to create the fine patterns of the print. In any case, a tulip with hearts, a symbol of divine love, and a common Ottoman motif. The next step is critical, applying the paper to the liquid, and slowly, surely, pulling it to reveal your masterpiece.
Art by David Celdran, with a lot of help from Errol over here. Not bad. Of course, this is one of the simpler patterns. If you want to do something really professional, you're gonna have a lot of years of training. You need a lot of years of training.
The paint needs to dry a bit more before the process is finally complete.
Wow. So this is it? It's finally dry.
Yes.
So this is what it looks like when it's dry and ready to be framed.
Yes.
Right? Wow.
Tulip and heart.
It's a fitting symbol of my affection for Errol City and its traditional culture. Too bad most people only ever get to know about Istanbul from the movies. So why not relive those scenes in the city?
Over there behind me, you can see a film crew setting up a scene for a movie. You see, one of the fun things to do in Istanbul is to retrace all the different locations for the films that were shot here. Famous films like the series of James Bond, for example.
Historic, romantic, and exotic. There's a reason why Istanbul figures in so many adventure films, like the classic 1964 crime thriller starring Melina Mercouri.
Because in Istanbul there is a Topkapi.
One of the first international films to put Istanbul on the map was a movie called Topkapi, named after the Topkapi Palace, the imperial palace of the Ottomans. This palace behind me, so let's go.
Topkapi was the palace of the first Ottoman sultans after the conquest of Constantinople. Now a sprawling museum, the stories of its famous harem and the treasures of the Sultan helped fuel the world's fantasies about Istanbul. Images of the exotic Orient that found its way to Ian Fleming's James Bond novels and films. Three Bond movies were set here, the last one featuring 007 in a motorcycle chase through the streets of the Grand Bazaar. It's a trend that began much earlier in 1960 with the filming of The Adventures of Tintin in Istanbul. Amazingly, the skyline, the Galata Bridge, the waters of the Bosporus in the opening scene of the live-action French film look pretty much the same as they do today.
One of the most recent films shot on location in Istanbul was Dan Brown's Inferno. You remember that film, don't you? Well, you will recall that dramatic sequence that started at the Hagia Sophia and ended at the underground cistern, which is just a few steps away from where I'm standing. Let's take a look.
After a fruitless search for clues in the Hagia Sophia, Dr. Langdon's party raced to the Basilica cistern, built by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian as an underground water supply for his city. The remarkably preserved structure was chosen for the final climactic scene of the movie, a location choice that has added even more mystery to the city. But perhaps no other film has done so as effectively as the second installment of Taken. While the film industry has played a huge role in promoting the city, at the end of the day, all Istanbul really needs to lure tourists is this: the most stunning waterfront scenery the world has seen. And when you add the wonderful cuisine, the culture of craftsmanship, and the fascinating multinational population in the mix, you will definitely want to visit Istanbul over and over again.
And that's all for this episode of Executive Class. I'm David Celdran. Thanks for watching.